Oh man, this fucking move has been insane, dude. Alright. Well, at least I can check and see what the last video got. But no, seriously, the reception on the last video was crazy. Thank you all so much for the support. Now, if you have a moment, YouTube does say that about 93% of you aren't subscribed. So, if you watched the last video and you came back for this one, why not drop a sub? Came back anyway. Without any further ado, today we're tackling the absolute train wreck that was the ending and later seasons of Attack on Titan. This series has been a roller coaster of epic anime battles and intense character moments that really made you feel the human aspects of the series. But after a stellar start, it bombed in the later half. The finale didn't just miss the mark, it completely careened off course and destroyed everything in its wake. Because I'm not here to just give a problem with no solutions, I'm also going to suggest a little rewrite of my own headcanon for the series. Let's take a moment to reflect on how we got here. I started watching Attack on Titan when it aired, and I fell in love with the themes and the series as a whole. The atmosphere, the feeling of hopelessness that the world encompassed. Only for a passion to be ignited within me when I found that Eren was going to be a powerful protagonist who could possibly fight back against this bleak onset of a world that he started in. Attack on Titan was building to something incredible. The world was richly crafted, the characters had clear motivations, and the stakes were extremely high at the time. Humanity's fate rested on the events of the story before them. I can take the liberty to say I believe we were all invested in Eren, Mikasa, and Armin, and the rest of the cast that we met later, because they represented our hope in this story. Not only did they represent our hope in this story, they also represented humanity's only chance at survival. But when we hit the later half of the series and into the final chapters, it feels like the creator tossed all of that aside for a cheap, rushed ending for shock value. Eren, who was once an understandable and empathetic character with a desire for freedom, turned into a genocidal tyrant. And while I can appreciate a villain with depth, turning the series protagonist into the ultimate antagonist felt jarring and disrespectful to everything that Eren's character had stood for previously. Eren was interested in keeping his friends and humanity and people at large alive. In fact, there's multiple times throughout the series where he says that he doesn't just want freedom for himself, but freedom for all. And ultimately, the justifications for all of his later actions are just an ass-pull. The future sight was made up at the last second to give a big reveal twist that honestly never even went anywhere. The heavy-handed execution of the cycle of hate theme that the series tried to run with in the later half felt hollow and thin. It left me scratching my head. Instead of a nuanced exploration of human conflict and suffering, we got a half-baked lecture that went nowhere. I'm all for deep themes. Just give me something that feels coherent and earned. This didn't fit within the story you were trying to tell originally. But realistically, the series went downhill after the inclusion of Marley in the larger world. The reveal that Verity was not the last bastion of humanity, as we had been led to assume, was not a shocking revelation. In reality, it just sucked all tension and care that I had for the series out of it. One of the most significant issues with Attack on Titan is Marley's introduction. It shifted the focus of the story from a deeply personal struggle for survival to that of a vast geopolitical conflict, a la Code Geass. This transition not only diluted the weight of individual character losses, but also made the overarching themes of the series feel abstract and distant. In the early seasons, every sacrifice that the characters made resonated with a deep and profound mysticism. Fight against Titans felt immediate and dire. The loss of a comrade wasn't just the loss of an emotional companion, it was a loss of one of maybe thousands of people even left alive in the world. The tension was palpable. It wasn't just about defeating Titans, it was about survival as a species. Allow me to give some examples of losses that feel undermined by the introduction of Marley and the concept of a world outside of Verity. While I'm not sure if he's ever named, because I couldn't find anything in the wiki, the first example I'd like to give is the man who game ends himself via the musket. It happens very early on in the series, one of the first couple of episodes, and I remember it felt so powerful, not because of just what it was. I mean, of course, that helped contribute to it, but also it felt immensely powerful because this was one of humanity's last people. I mean, thousands is not a large number when we're talking about a species that's endangered. And to see one of these endangered species decide to go out on his own terms was heart-wrenching. I can understand why he did it. There's a fate worse than death waiting beyond those walls. But still, it's mortifying when you, again, factor in the idea that he's one of the last few people left. When you open up the world, the loss is insignificant. One person.
Was that the bite of 87?
Another example would be Marco Bot. Marco's sacrifice is one of the most heart-wrenching moments in the series. During the mission to retake Wall Maria, Marco is caught by Titans while trying to help his comrades and is ultimately game-ended. His end is discovered when Jean, Connie, and others happen upon his body, and it profoundly affects them. Marco's fate serves as a stark reminder of the brutal reality they face and inflicts a sense of guilt and urgency in his friends. But yet again, when you later learn that these Titans were just tossed into the wall as a political ploy and that Marco's fate genuinely meant nothing to anyone, it really breaks down the emotional tension the scene has. I find myself using the same descriptors over and over again for this, but the best way I can describe these reveals that then shifted and showed the true colors of the story is hollow and devoid of life and the tense nature of the story in the beginning. When Marley emerged as a central player, the tension to all of those scenes evaporated instantly. Suddenly, the fate of humanity was relegated to a broader, faceless conflict that felt disconnected from the core characters we had invested so much time in. The stakes shifted from individual lives hanging in the balance, where one life meant so much to the remaining amount of people, to a political game of maneuvering where the nuances of individual experiences became completely lost to the narrative. The intimate personal stakes, the brutal consequences of conflict, loss, and survival, just an argument flaring up could have costed humanity multiple people of an already dying population. And all of that was overshadowed by a detached narrative that left me scrambling to keep up with the ever-expanding world. Moreover, the dilution of humanity's existential crisis undercut the overarching narrative by introducing the idea that there were significant factors at play beyond parody. The grim reality the characters faced to fight against the Titans who had consumed their world was supplanted by a more abstract concern involving various nations, all with their own agendas and histories.
Hey, quick voiceover, Zed. I was looking through more opinions on the topic, and I did notice a quote that I wanted to add here. I found it on Reddit while I was browsing to see what other people thought of the introduction of Marley and such. And the quote is, "The geopolitics of AOT work like what an edgy 13-year-old would think geopolitics are." And I think those words sum it up in a way that I almost never could. Those are a beautifully immaculate way to put it. That quote is by Kazuya Proda, if you're interested. Thanks, back to the video.
This made past struggles, like the fight from beyond the walls, feel trivial and almost naive. The once personal conflict transformed into a grand chessboard where the stakes felt less about individual survival and more about ideological clashes between international powers. The introduction of Marley also brought with it the reveal of the source of the Titan. This could have been pivotal in building a stronger narrative. However, the alien bizarre origin, a weird amoeba that spawned a race of people, felt like a strange, off-putting derailment from the overarching themes of struggle and survival that had initially resonated with fans and myself. Not only that, but it also felt detached from the somewhat grounded and realistic world of Attack on Titan. Now, when I say grounded and realistic, I'm of course saying with a stretch of believability that there could be large kind of humanoids running around attacking people. About as much as you would need to separate your mind from a zombie film. However, in this instance, the explanation made that leap in reality too large for me to continue pursuing. Instead of getting our very nice themes where they were nuanced and quiet, where you had to think on what a Titan meant, what the death of these people meant. Instead, now it had to be shoved down your throat that it's all politics, because any reader is too stupid to be able to realize that that was what the Titans were originally an analogy for. This recontextualization of the Titans robbed the series of its visceral impact. In earlier seasons, the Titans were a direct threat to humanity, manifesting the inescapable struggle for survival. As the source of their power became more mythological and disconnected from the characters' lived experiences, the tension and horror associated with them diminished into nothing. The moment viewers discover that there are other nations and Verity is just one part of the broader world is the moment the walls crumble around the story's emotional core. Seeing a Titan in the earlier seasons was frightening. It was terrifying. They could take out anyone. They could do anything if they might have been an abnormal. They could possibly even be intelligent if they were really unlucky. But that didn't mean anything later on. We knew that a Titan wasn't really even a threat anymore. Marley's introduction shifted the audience's focus from the terror of Titans approaching the walls where humanity tried to create a bastion over to human conflicts that felt less immediate and personal because ultimately these people weren't working together. They were never interested in their common goal, whereas they were when the Titans were more of a threat. In short, for Marley's introduction, it was a misguided attempt to add depth to an already emotionally rich world that ultimately led to a dilution of the very tension that made Attack on Titan captivating. Juxtaposition of individual struggle against what felt like an impersonal, sprawling war took away the essence of what made characters' journeys compelling. The focus on broad political maneuvering over intimate personal stories lost the sense of urgency and transformed our beloved characters into faceless pawns in a larger game, leading to a finale that felt empty and devoid of the emotional resonance that had initially defined the series. It felt as if the creator watched Code Geass and went, you know what, I want my story to be that instead. Now, let's talk about the supporting cast, specifically Mikasa and Armin. These characters had so much potential, especially Mikasa, who was often overshadowed by Eren's story. Instead of showcasing her evolution as a warrior or exploring her own identity, she's forced to be innately tied to Eren, ultimately doing his bidding to somehow break the cycle of oppression by being oppressed. And Armin, our beloved strategist, suddenly seems to lack the intelligence that defined him in these later seasons. While the others struggle with moral complexity, he's shoehorned into this convenient leader role without much development from there on. The supposed growth is there, but it's hardly fulfilling, and his sudden interest in saving the people of Marley is ridiculous and asinine. It felt forced and disconnected from the narrative that came before it. In reality, Armin and Mikasa would have stayed loyal to Eren no matter what. It's just a betrayal of their character to say otherwise. As for the ending itself, don't get me started. The pacing was horrific. It felt like the final chapters were on a fast forward. Events took place so quickly, it robbed the series of the weight that defined it. Eren's death felt cheap. Are we supposed to believe that all of his drastic choices were a result of a random future sight power he picked up and we had never heard about until just now? If anything, we needed more to build up to that moment, not a rushed, heart-wrenching demise that created more confusion than closure. And let's talk about that final scene where we see Verity burning to the ground and being shelled. This scene proved Eren and his attempt at the rumbling was actually completely justified. Had Eren succeeded, no one would have been able to be alive to attack Verity, and his friends selfishly ended him and his plans because they were too blinded by emotions for the lives of homicidal maniacs that would have done far worse to them given the chance, and later do far worse to their people given the chance. It was like an afterthought, devoid of any meaningful resonance. The ending was horrible. It didn't honor their sacrifices, the relationships built over the years of struggle we witnessed. Now, this is my own suggestion for an ending. I am not an acclaimed writer by any means, but I have been writing since basically as soon as I knew the English language. And I don't claim to be an expert in writing, however, I do claim to be an expert in taste. And this is my proposed rewrite to rectify the later additions that ended up ruining the story. Now, keep in mind, these are a headcanon, my own creation, and not at all what actually happened in canon, but we all know how I feel about canon. We arrive at the cellar of Grisha Jaeger, a brilliant man and the father of our protagonist. Aaron unlocks the cellar, a long-fought battle still ringing in his ears as the lock clatters open. The cellar opens and descends, revealing the truth of the Titans. They are the dead of humanity. Their spirits float into the ocean outside Paradis and bloat. Hate fuels them, and in time they grow large and bloated. The Titans vary in size due to hatred, and only sometimes vary in behavior due to traumatic brain injury causing their end. When Titans evaporate, their spirit descends back into the water and begins growing once more. Aaron is part of the few who can shift into Titans, his spirit growing in the sea between transformations. But Grisha feared that Aaron would become a violent maniac, as the shifters before him had. He intended to end Aaron in the cellar. Before he could return from his trip, the colossal Titan appeared. This is when Mikasa, Armin, and Aaron discover that Aaron's intense hatred for Titans is what fuels his transformations and is why he hasn't gone crazy from them. The group then decides to investigate further outside of the cellar. It gives us the key information, but the group must ultimately fend for themselves. Many lives are lost, and Aaron grows more powerful, his hatred burning brighter as he begins ending other shifters, such as the armored and colossal Titans. Aaron and the group discover the secret of the Titans. Yes, they're human spirits. They're not simply mindless vessels. Their hatred is being focused by a mysterious entity, an ancient force that feeds on the collective despair and anguish of the souls trapped in Titans' bodies, relishing in the feelings of grief. This entity has been manipulating the fates of the Eldians, drawing from their negative emotions to maintain a perpetual cycle of suffering. The group must fight along with the last of humanity, now numbered somewhere in the hundreds, 300 to 400. We've met many faces along this journey, and soon the group confronts the entity, and we are whittled away. The creature is faster, smarter, and far stronger than the army amassed against it. Aaron is decimated, alive, but barely, as humanity stands at fewer than 100 now, mostly filled with faces that we will recognize. With some we know being lost, like Levi and Connie. Aaron has gotten stronger, even during this fight, losing Connie and Levi, making him immensely stronger in his hatred and burning deeper within his Titan form. Seeing this, Armin, ever the tactician, and with the last of humanity in need, makes the ultimate sacrifice. He attacks the creature, taunting it, screaming, "Why do you hate us?" And the creature responds, "I don't hate you. Nothing so trivial is worthy of hate." And Armin is obliterated. Aaron screams in agony at the loss of his closest friend, one of the closest he had ever had. His hatred boils over, and we get an amazing transformation, leading to Aaron going toe-to-toe with the entity. Still not quite enough, but with humanity's combined effort, explosives, swords, and anything else you can name, they topple the creature, with Aaron now permanently blinded from the exertion, but alive. We conclude with seeing the last village of humanity, many years later. A statue of Armin is erected in the center. A small library with his name is next to it. We see Mikasa holding Aaron's hand to guide him outside to their child. We see has scraped their knee on the stone and is crying. "I hate these stupid stones. I hate these stupid rocks," the child screams. Aaron gently brushes them off. We end with him saying, Now, we do not hate." Ending the series on a bittersweet note. The fate of humanity is uncertain, with numbers so few, yet we persist. In conclusion, Attack on Titan had everything it needed to be one of the greatest stories ever told in anime, but it tragically stumbled in its final hours. Instead of a grand crescendo, we were treated to a hurried epilogue that left so much to be desired. It's crucial to revisit the core themes, the characters we loved, and create an ending that feels earned and respectful of the journey we embarked upon. Something the mangaka never gave us. So here's to hoping that someday, either in fanfiction or potential spin-offs, we get the conclusion we truly deserve. The story of Attack on Titan was meant to be an exploration of humanity's will to live, with the flicker of hope shining through at the end. It was not meant to be an obliteration of its heart in a whirlwind of bad choices. Thanks for joining me on this rant. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think there's a better way the ending could have played out? How do you like the ending I proposed? If you enjoyed it, drop me a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. I'll probably be making another video on Naruto soon. I'm thinking about doing one of the movies, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, I finally got to Texas. I finally got all of my setup done. So now I'm releasing another video, and I just hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.